What if the parts of yourself you've been trying to shrink, the parts you were told were too much, are truly your greatest assets? What if too much was never a measurement of your flaws, but the measurement of their lack of capacity? We've all heard the labels too sensitive, too loud, too emotional, too dramatic, or the worst, too gay. And for many of us, that sticks because then we learn to water ourselves down to fit into a cup that was offered to us. But what if the problem wasn't the water? What if the problem is the capacity of the cup? By the end of this video, you'll understand why you've never been too much and how to finally stop shrinking yourself to fit. Now, before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome, my friend, to the coaching sessions. My name is David, and this is where we have honest conversations about what it takes to stop playing the supporting role in your own life, especially if you're a gay man who has spent years being the steady one, the reliable one, the one that everybody leans on, everybody's emergency therapist at 1 a.m. And as a mindset coach, I help gay men go from feeling like second best, somebody's maybe, or powerless in their own lives to standing taller, feeling confident in their actions, decisions, relationships without shrinking, editing, or people-pleasing, trying to keep everybody else comfortable. And if that sounds like a journey that you want to stay close to, I invite you to hit subscribe and tap like so you can hear about new sessions as they land. All right, let's talk about that feeling of being too much. Maybe you laughed a little too loudly at the dinner table and saw somebody flinch. Perhaps you expressed a big emotion and were told to calm down or stop making a scene. And you may have learned very quickly that your full expression made other people uncomfortable. And because we're wired for connection, you then made a choice, a survival choice. You decided that to be safe, you had to be quieter. You learned to start editing yourself. You learned to read the room and only release so much of yourself as you thought people could handle. And you might have been carrying this weight ever since. The weight of constantly monitoring yourself, the exhaustion of being a diluted version of who you're meant to be. But here's the truth that I've learned, and I need you to hear this today, my friend, because when somebody tells you you are too much, they're not describing you, they're describing themselves. They are confessing to their own limitations. They're actively saying, I don't have the nervous system capacity to hold this much life force and this much light. And that might be valid for them, and that's okay if they have a small capacity, but it's not a command then for you to have to shrink. There is also something within your ability to step into where you are fully that may very well awaken something in them that prevents them from fully taking up space as their authentic selves. So they think if they silence you and you go quiet, they don't have to consider what keeps them stuck. Think of it this way. If you try and pour a gallon of water into a thimble, it'll overflow. It'll make a mess. Now, is the water too much? Or is the thimble, aka the person's capacity or the situation, too small? You may have spent years being convinced the issue was the water picking faults with your personality, your heart, your energy, when perhaps you may have avoided looking at the thimble, the bucket, the cup. What if you're learning that you should have been looking for the people and the spaces that have the capacity to hold all of you and your brilliance? When we shrink to make other people comfortable, we're essentially lying to ourselves. We are presenting this false small version. And the tragedy is, even if they love the small version, they don't love all of you. And that can leave you feeling lonely, even when you're surrounded by a ton of people. Because the true you is still hidden away, convinced somehow that he's too much or unlovable. And the goal isn't to be less. The goal is to find people who say, finally, somebody with some depth, somebody with some passion. So how do we stop shrinking? Well, we start by noticing where we are editing ourselves. Notice when you lower your voice. Notice when you hold back an opinion. Notice when you apologize for having a feeling. And in those moments, I want you to challenge the urge to shrink. Remind yourself, my intensity is not a flaw, it's my superpower. It's the part of you that creates. It's the part of you that lights up a room. So don't dim your light just because it's hurting somebody else's eyes. Let them put on sunglasses or walk out the room. Just leave that up to them and you keep being yourself. Imagine walking into a room and then not scanning it to see who you need to be just to fit in. Imagine expressing your joy, your sadness, excitement without that split second of, is this okay? Imagine being surrounded by friends and partners who don't just tolerate your energy, but they celebrate it, they cheer it on. They meet you exactly where you are. And this is the kind of freedom of being seen, not the edited version, the whole version. This is what happens when you stop asking for permission to exist. Now, here's a little mantra that I want you to write down and keep it somewhere visible. Stick it to your fridge, stick it to your phone, whatever. I am not too much. I was just in a room with the wrong people. Now, if you're tired of shrinking yourself to fit, if you're exhausted from trying to squeeze yourself into a life that feels too small, and if you're tired of shrinking yourself to fit, if you're exhausted from trying to squeeze yourself into a life that feels too small, then it's time to find a bigger room. And that's exactly why I built my coaching container, the Freedom Community. Because it's a space where you can be too much and it's welcomed, where your full story, emotion, and full self are not just allowed but required. And you are doing the work with my guidance of unlearning the shame and stepping into your full height. And if you're ready to stop the editing, the link to join us is below and you can join for free. But until next time, remember, you don't need to be less, you just need to be seen and heard. And I shall see you in the next video, my friend. Take care and be well.